Welcome, YouTube family. Welcome to another video of the Kevin Strong Show. And in this video, we're going to talk about they have taken so much from us. So the title of the video was called The American Nightmare. So this is going to turn a lot of people off. I'm probably going to lose a couple of subscribers. I hope not, but hopefully I will gain more than I lose. But I feel compelled at this point in time to kind of talk about some things that I'm observing as an American that's going on in our society that I'm just not happy with. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. So if you're new to my show, welcome. Hopefully you'll stick around to the end and be a subscriber. My name is Kevin Strong, your host. Smash that like button if you do enjoy my content so YouTube will share it, and also hit the notification button because I do release my videos at least once a week. So as I indicated at the start of this video, I called it They Have Taken So Much From Us. So let's go ahead and get into some of the points that I like to discuss with you. When the healthcare crisis started, we'll say March of 2020, I think is when the lockdowns began. There's some statistics that basically came out and said as of April 2021, there was roughly around 200,000 businesses that were permanently closed as a result of the healthcare crisis. Now, in retrospect, we found out year to date that's probably a 98 to 99% survival rate. Okay, most people survive from it. The Small Business Administration considers companies with less than 500 employees basically to be small businesses. Now, from a common man standpoint, obviously, if you've got several hundred employees, we don't look at that as a small business. But in terms of how the federal government determined big business, it's based on the 500 employee count, which means that 99.7% of all small businesses basically fall under that umbrella. Now we're going to transition into real estate. 65% of landlords are mom and pop, but they are perceived as evil, rich people. They are the average working American trying to supplement their income. So this misconception that some of the public has that all of these landlords are these greedy institutional investors that are raising rents at a clip of 15 to 20% a year is not accurate representation of what the average landlord is. Once again, about 65% of landlords are mom and pop. What's a mom and pop landlord? A husband or wife or a couple that's got a couple rental properties, 2 or 3, maybe 4. That's the typical landlord that you're renting from in most cases. So now working hard and taking a risk for a better lifestyle is construed as evil. Those people who have such feelings, in my humble opinion, are basically stamping themselves as a socialist. Because if anybody is willing to take the risk and work harder and as a result benefit from that, hell, isn't that what the American spirit is all about? A rag to riches story. Everyone can find solace and embrace a journey like that because it invokes inspiration and hope, because it gives the average American the feeling that no matter how shitty their situation is, with hard work, with education, and willing to have an appetite for risk, maybe you can improve your social or financial situation. It is not a litmus test to say that if you work hard, you're always going to get rewarded, which they used to call in college the equity theory. We know what you put in, you don't always get out. We understand that. But I'm saying by and large, everybody embraces the human spirit, especially when the story is predicated on a rags to riches story. But somehow, some way, when you are better off than when you were years ago, that's construed as taking away from the less advantaged. Our whole mindset, our mindset, and our whole psychology has changed. It's even acceptable not to pay your bills. I think America is basically transforming into a caste social system. This is something we used to make fun at decades ago about third world countries, but hey, it's becoming more and more applicable in common practice in everyday U.S. living. What a caste system is basically, if you're born into poverty, you're going to die poor. There's no opportunity to break out of that caste system and get something better for yourself. It's really, really sad. I can't pronounce this country here at the bottom. I always screw it up. Eritrea, I can't even pronounce it. I think it's on the eastern part of Africa. But that country and the United States are the only two nations on the planet that taxed you based on where in the hell you're born. Australia is thinking about doing it as well. So if they do it, they will become the third country that does that. So basically, you're born in the United States. You haven't lived in the United States in 20 years, but yet still you're on Social Security. You have some kind of income through passive investments, whatever. You have an income. Even though you're living, let's say, in Mexico and you haven't been into the United States in the last 20 years, guess what? You still have to file a U.S. tax return, even though you haven't been in the country in 2 decades. They tax you no matter where you go. It's a freaking joke. I encourage people to get a passport and explore having citizenship in countries outside of the United States. I'm not an advocate for you to acquiesce or give up your citizenship. Some people do that, and there's a significant tax advantage to that as well, but I'm not giving anybody tax advice. But I do think it's prudent, the way things are going in our society, to have several options in terms of citizenship and where you can live or where you can start a business. So before I get to my last slide, there's just some things that I wanted to bring to your attention. I'm going to give you an analogy that's going to address our political system as it applies to the most recent presidents, Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Remember when the health crisis came out and they told you you don't want to basically have cash because cash is dirty? Cash conveys COVID, which was a bunch of bullshit. You remember that? ATM restrictions. So since the health crisis, which is roughly over 3 years ago, the banking system has systematically restricted access for the American people to get to their cash. You used to be able to walk in to a bank and open up an account. Now you need an appointment. If you want to take out a significant amount of money, they're going to ask you 20, 30 questions as to why do you want your own damn money? Because they don't have it. Companies can't get funding based on a social credit score. So if you're not all inclusive, or if you're saying something or you're promoting an image that's not accepted by mainstream and you need to go get funding to continue your business, you may be denied access because of that. Not based on the performance of your company, not based on how well you treat your employees, not based on how much you give back maybe to your community if it's a small business. It's based on an inclusive metric. So you can't make this stuff up. Wages are not keeping up with inflation. They never have, and they never will. So the average American is going to constantly have to fight each and every year to either reduce their expenses or make sure their income increases to the point where there's a combination of an increase in income and a reduction in expenses. And hopefully putting those two things together, you can either be at or above inflation. So my final thoughts. You've got President Biden on the left and ex-President Trump on the right. Just for full disclosure, I am agnostic. I used to have a political affiliation a while back, years ago. I do not. And I'm titling this last slide, Does It Really Matter? Most of our problems are local. I think we spend too much time on our political affiliations and not self-improvement. That's just my personal opinion. I think the politics of what's going on with ex-President Donald Trump is a distraction. Whether or not it's valid or not, I'm not commenting on that. But we've got food crisis. We have kids who can't eat. We've got people who can't afford to buy a home. Home ownership is becoming something for the luxury. It's slowly slipping away out of the hands of the American dream. It's becoming the American nightmare. You've got this Ukraine war and you got all this other shit that's going on, but our country is imploding. It's like that frog that proverbial frog in the water and you turn the temperature up, and the frog doesn't realize that the temperature is going up and it ultimately dies. That's what's happening to our society. That's what's happening to our country. But we don't get fixated on the things that affect us on a daily basis. We get fixated on seeing Joe Biden stumble his ass as he's going on, trying to get on Air Force One. Oh, Donald Trump's been running this mouth for the last 4 or 5 years. Now that SOB's getting ready to go to jail. Whether or not that's true, but one thing I know that is true, if you don't have an emergency fund, if you can't pay your bills, if you can't take care of your freaking family, and your kid wakes up a Saturday morning and he tells you that he's hungry, I want you to look your child in the eye and tell him, don't worry about those hunger pains. Did you see how many likes I got when I showed you that video that Donald Trump might go to jail? Did you see that video that I sent to you, or that I sent out, that I posted on the internet, that Joe Biden can't put a sentence together, and everybody was laughing and commenting on it? I know we're about to get foreclosed on, but at least Donald Trump's going to jail. What's Joe Biden's mental acuity? Because all of this is bullshit. You need to focus on your own problems because your problems are local. I will leave you with this final analogy that sums up my opinion about the left and the right. Just look at the left as black ants. No pun intended. Let's look at the Republicans, let's say Donald Trump, as red ants. And we're all in a jar. And the jar is being handled or managed by the system. When the red ants and the black ants aren't fighting, they don't really like that. The system doesn't like that. They like divisiveness. They like us chipping at each other. They like us being distracted at other political things that are going on in the news. So what the system does, it takes that jar and it shakes it up violently to the point where they sit it down, and now the black ants and the red ants are fighting each other. They're cannibalizing each other, and the system's laughing because that's the way they want it. They have us inside this jar. We can't get outside of the jar. And if we remain calm or start thinking logically too long, or we start thinking, hey, maybe we need to figure out a way how to get the hell out of this jar, they start to agitate it, so we lose sight of what's most important, which is getting out of the jar, aka get your ass out of the rat race. So what happens, they shake this jar up, we start fighting, we settle down, and if we settle down once again, they reshake the jar. What we should do, whether you're a black ant or a red ant, you should stop fighting and figure out a way how to get out of that goddamn proverbial jar and figure out who's responsible for who's been agitating it for all of these years. Maybe that's the proverbial hand that should be bitten, that's causing all the distraction and all the divisiveness. But yet and still, people don't want to focus on that. They want to focus on whether it's Joe Biden or whether it's Donald Trump. And our society is basically imploding. When your kid, like I said, when your kid wakes up in the morning, they're not asking you who you voted for. They want something you eat. If you get that notice in the mail that the bank's about to foreclose and your wife's in tears because she's got ties to the community, she's got friends down the street, your kids got friends that they play with down the street, does all this stuff really matter? Solve your pain because your pain is local. So kind of a different video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please comment on it. If you don't like some of the things I said, I'd be more than happy to hear your point of view. I will respond to a comment, positive or negative. I'm going to leave you with my famous quote. Keep your credit score up and your debt down. Stay out of politics unless you want to be a clown. This was the Kevin Strong Show. I'll see you in the next video. And thanks for watching.